All right, so picture this. You're out in Death Valley, right? One of those desolate places on Earth.
Absolutely.
And you're there for science. You're a geologist. You're looking for, new discoveries, and you stumble upon something totally mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's funny. It really speaks to, like, the core of what it means to be human. This drive to explore and this idea that maybe, just maybe, there are things out there beyond what we can even imagine right now.
Totally. And that's what we're diving into today. A really creepy and strange account from Death Valley.
Oh, yeah?
So we've got this firsthand story from a geologist who was exploring out past Racetrack Playa, that area with the moving rocks.
Right.
And his whole account is basically a warning.
Wow.
It was like the last thing he wrote before, in his own words, the changes are complete. So, yeah.
So the question for everyone listening is, what could possibly make a seasoned geologist say that, right? Like, what could be so terrifying and so transformative that it leads to that kind of final message?
That's exactly what we're going to try to figure out today, breaking down his story, looking at all the weird stuff he saw, and trying to understand what it all means.
I'm hooked already.
Right. So for you, the learner, this is a chance to think about the limits of science and what we know about the world, and maybe what happens when you push those limits too far.
Pushing the limits of knowledge. It's a classic theme.
It is. Okay, so let's start with this geologist.
Okay.
To understand his story, I think we need to understand him, right?
Makes sense.
So he wasn't just some random guy on vacation. He left academia under some pretty bad circumstances. He was going through a divorce, struggling with, some personal stuff. And then on top of all that, he kept having these nightmares about a colleague of his, David, who had disappeared.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it all kind of points to someone who was maybe, a little bit desperate for a win, and also someone maybe more willing to take risks.
Yeah, and you can see how all of that personal baggage could influence his research.
Yeah.
Maybe make him more likely to chase something really out there.
Definitely. He mentions in his notes that this research, this book he was working on about undocumented geological formations, this was his chance to redeem himself professionally. So it was more than just science for him. It was tied up in his whole identity,
That's heavy.
Yeah. And then there's the place he chose to explore, right? He went way out past Racetrack Playa to this unmarked area that wasn't even on official maps. He picked it based on satellite images that suggested there might be some weird geological stuff happening.
So right off the bat, he's looking for something unusual, something that's not already in the textbooks.
Exactly. And he's willing to go into basically uncharted territory to find it.
Which is, pretty risky even for an experienced geologist.
Yeah, and the warnings he got from the park rangers, they're like foreshadowing.
Oh, yeah.
They told him straight up, there's no cell service out there, satellite phones are super unreliable, and they'd already had a bunch of rescue missions that year.
Yikes.
Yeah. And one ranger even pointed to some areas on the geologist's personal map and was like, no, you might want to avoid those spots.
Really? So even the rangers knew something was off?
It seems like there was this unspoken awareness of something strange going on out there.
Okay, so we've got this geologist driven by this need for a breakthrough, dealing with some personal stuff and heading into this remote and potentially dangerous area.
Exactly. And then he gets to his chosen spot and things get weird right away.
How so?
He talks about this unnatural silence.
Violence.
Yeah, more than just quiet. It wasn't the usual desert silence. He said it was like a pressurized absence of sound.
That's creepy just hearing you say it.
Right, something was actively absorbing all the noise.
So it wasn't just the absence of something, it felt like the presence of something else.
Exactly. And on top of that, he has this dream.
Oh no, here we go.
About David, his missing colleague. And in the dream, David gives him this warning. He says, "They move when you're not looking, Professor."
Okay, so right away we have this idea of something hidden, something that's aware of being observed, and that changes its behavior accordingly.
Yeah, and it really makes you wonder about what happened to David,
Yeah, what did happen to David?
We don't know for sure, but this warning is definitely unsettling, right?
Super unsettling. Okay, so we've got the strange silence, the cryptic warning, and now let's get to the main attraction, the anomaly itself.
Okay, so he gets to the spot he was aiming for, and instead of the rock formations he was expecting based on his maps and satellite data, he finds this huge depression in the ground.
A depression.
Yeah, a huge one, and it's filled with this dark stone that's rippled like frozen liquid.
That's so bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you even begin to explain that kind of discrepancy between what your data tells you should be there and what you're actually seeing?
Right. It's like a fundamental mismatch between science and reality, and that's just the beginning.
Okay, so let's hear about these stones.
All right. So scattered across this depression are these stones, and they're all perfectly ovoid.
Ovoid, like egg-shaped.
Exactly. They're all different sizes, but they're all pointing in the same direction. And he's careful to point out that these are not like the sailing stones you see at Racetrack Playa.
Right, the ones that move across the desert floor, leaving those trails.
Yeah, those are cool, but these ovoid stones are different. Their arrangement is too precise, too deliberate. It doesn't look like anything natural.
So you're saying it looks artificial, like someone placed them there.
It's definitely suggestive of some kind of intelligent design.
Okay, that's already pretty wild, but it gets even weirder, right?
Oh, yeah. So he starts analyzing these stones with his portable microscope, and the mineral composition is totally normal, but the molecular structure is unstable.
Unstable.
How so? It's like the molecules are arranged in a way that defies the laws of physics.
It's like they shouldn't exist in that form.
Right. And on top of that, he picks up this faint vibration coming from the depression, and when he records it, the vibrations form these distinct patterns.
Wait, vibrations that form patterns.
Yeah, he describes it as not quite speech, but unsettlingly close to communication. At first, he tries to brush it off as natural resonance, like the way a tuning fork vibrates.
Right, but the patterns.
The patterns make it hard to ignore. It's like the landscape itself is trying to say something.
That's creepy. Okay, so we've got this depression that shouldn't be there, strange stones with an impossible molecular structure, and now vibrations that might be some form of communication. This is like a geologist's worst nightmare.
Yeah, it's a total scientific mystery, and it only gets weirder from here.
I'm almost afraid to ask, but what happens next?
So remember how he said the stones were all pointing in the same direction?
Yeah.
Well, one night at exactly 3:1 a.m., every single stone in the depression rotates and points directly at his camper.
Whoa, hold on. All of them at the same time?
Every single one. It's like they were all watching him, waiting for something.
Okay, that is not natural. There's no way that's just some random geological phenomenon.
Right. It's clearly deliberate, and it's clearly directed at him.
So at this point, he's got to be freaking out, right?
Oh, yeah, he's terrified. And he tries to leave the depression, but no matter how far he drives, no matter which direction he goes, he always ends up back at the same spot.
It's like he's trapped.
Exactly. And then he manages to pick up this garbled radio signal. It's all staticky and broken up, but he hears phrases like changes in the observe and requires a host to fully...
A host? What does that even mean?
We don't know for sure, but it doesn't sound good.
Definitely not. And his maps, they changed, right?
Yeah, he starts noticing these subtle changes to his maps, like little annotations and markings that are in his own handwriting, but he has no memory of making them.
So it's like something is messing with his mind, his memories.
Or maybe even controlling him in some way.
Okay, so he's trapped, his maps are changing, and then the wind voices start.
Yeah, the wind starts blowing through those strange stones, and it sounds like voices.
Voices.
Yeah, and they're speaking in different languages. Some is geological jargon, and then he hears David's voice.
No way, his missing colleague.
Yep, he hears David saying things like exchange, witness, integrate, and then this really chilling line, I told you they were studying us back, now you're part of the sample collection.
So they're studying him.
Yeah.
He's become the experiment.
It seems that way, and that's when the physical transformation starts.
Transformation.
Yeah, the skin around his fingernails starts to harden, it takes on this mineral quality, and under a UV light, it shows those same shifting patterns that he saw in the stone samples.
Oh, God. So he's becoming like the stones.
He's literally merging with this anomaly, and while this is happening, the depression itself starts expanding.
Expanding.
Yeah, it gets bigger, and the stones, they rearrange themselves into these perfect concentric circles around his Jeep. And his camera catches these glimpses of shadowy figures made of swirling dark sand moving around the edges of the depression.
Okay, so it's not just the stones. It's like this whole landscape is alive and aware, and it's changing based on what's happening to him.
It's totally beyond anything we understand, and he makes one last desperate attempt to escape. He gets in his Jeep and drives as fast as he can. He ends up right back at his campsite with the odometer showing an impossible number of miles.
So he can't escape.
No, it's like the area itself is a closed loop, and his transformation keeps getting worse. His arm becomes encased in this stone-like shell. It's still flexible, but it's not human anymore.
So he's losing himself. He's becoming something else.
And his Jeep's GPS completely freaks out. It starts showing these impossible coordinates. And then the stone sample he collected, it integrates itself into the Jeep's control systems, and the Jeep starts making these weird
The
sounds.
stone is like taking over his technology.
Right, and then David's voice comes back one last time, and he says, they've been waiting for someone who understands them. Congratulations, you finally found your undocumented formation.
Oh, wow. So his expertise, his knowledge is what led him to this fate.
It's like his scientific curiosity made him the perfect target.
That's terrifying, but also kind of sad.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Despite all this horror, he comes to this strained understanding about the entity. He realizes that it's not evil or malicious.
Not evil.
No, he says it's something totally alien, something we can't even comprehend, and it's not trying to hurt him, it's trying to study him by becoming him.
Studying by becoming. That's a really interesting way to put it.
Right, and as this transformation takes hold, he starts to perceive the world in a completely different way. He can sense vibrations through solid rock. He can feel the immensity of geological time. And he talks about gaining this forbidden knowledge.
Forbidden knowledge. That's intense.
Yeah, it's like he's tapped into something vast and ancient, something way beyond human experience. And he comes to believe that this entity is part of a living geological process that's been going on for eons.
So it's not just some creature, it's like a force of nature.
Right, and this process, it evolves by incorporating new perspectives, by merging with other beings, and that's what's happening to him. He's becoming part of this ancient process.
So his death isn't an ending, it's a transformation.
Exactly. He even suggests that David, his missing colleague, might have undergone the same transformation.
Wow. So they're both part of this thing now.
It seems that way, and even though he's going through this horrifying change, he still has enough humanity left to try to warn others.
He tries to warn others even though he's trapped.
Yeah, he drives his Jeep to a ranger station, leaving it there with a message, and he disables the GPS and destroys his map so no one else can follow him.
That's a selfless act, even in the face of his own terrifying fate.
He wants to protect others from suffering the same fate, and he leaves behind some specific warning signs for anyone who might stumble into that area.
What kind of warning signs?
He says if you see rock formations that seem to shift or change, if you find stones arranged in unnaturally perfect patterns, and if you feel this oppressive silence like a physical pressure, you need to get out of there.
So those are like red flags that something's not right.
Exactly, and he has a message for other geologists. He says, some mysteries are best left unstudied.
Like there are some things we're not meant to know.
Yeah, and he describes the entity's communication as writing its message on his own changing flesh.
That's a powerful image.
It's like he's becoming the message itself.
And his final advice:
stay on the marked trails, and some stones should remain undisturbed forever.
chilling words from someone who's seen beyond the veil.
So the big takeaway here is that this geologist's story challenges everything we think we know about the world. It blurs the lines between observer and observed, between life and geology, and it suggests that there might be forces out there far beyond our comprehension.
It really makes you think about the limits of our knowledge and the potential consequences of pushing those limits.
Exactly, and it leaves us with so many questions. What is this entity? How does it operate? Could there be other places like this on Earth? And the biggest question of all, is there a point where scientific curiosity becomes too dangerous?
Those are questions for each of us to grapple with,
Yeah.
as we explore the world and try to understand our place in it.
Absolutely. This deep dive has been a journey into the unknown, and it's a reminder that sometimes the most unsettling discoveries are the ones that make us question everything we thought we knew.
And that's the beauty of exploration, right? It's about embracing the unknown and being prepared to have our minds blown wide open.
Exactly. And sometimes it's about knowing when to step back and respect the mysteries that are best left undisturbed.
Right? Because who knows what we might awaken when we start digging too deep.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
Anytime, this was fascinating.
And to you, the learner, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, stay curious.
But stay safe out there.
Absolutely. Until next time,
See you then.
take care.
You too.
All right, so stay away from RV trip in Redwood National Park. I mean, wow, that's quite a statement, isn't it?
It is, yeah. You don't see a warning like that every day.
Yeah.
And the story behind it, well, let's just say it's pretty intense.
Yeah, so let's get into it. This deep dive, we're taking a look at what we have, some writings from this researcher, Marcus.
Right.
He went to Redwood National Park, specifically the northwestern part, for some research, but things went really, really sideways.
Yeah, his sabbatical kind of turned into something else entirely. what he describes in his notes. It's a complete transformation, something that really pushes the boundaries of how we understand biology, even consciousness itself.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff. So what we're going to try and do today is, well, figure out what happened to him using what he wrote, and, well, figure out what it means for all of us.
Exactly.
So first things first. Who is Marcus, and what was he doing out there in the redwoods?
So Marcus, he was a university researcher, 15 years of experience under his belt. He was there to study the microbiome and how those ancient sequoia forests communicate. It was a big deal for him, like this deep personal dive into how those ecosystems work.
I see. And this wasn't just like a random research trip, right? There was more to it for him.
Oh, yeah.
Some personal stuff going on.
It sounds like he'd had a bit of a breakdown. You know, the pressures of academia, a divorce, and he was feeling pretty disillusioned with the whole university research scene.
Right.
It's kind of ironic, actually. It was his dean who suggested he should, reconnect with your research roots.
Yeah, with what happened, that's a little ominous in retrospect.
You could say that.
So he sets off to this pretty remote area of the park, and it sounds like he went all out with the equipment.
Oh, he was serious about this research. He got a ton of funding. State-of-the-art portable lab, all set up in a customized Ford Transit. But there's this interesting detail when he told Dr. Kana at the park, the research division, where he wanted to go really old grove, past the Emerald Ridge Trail. She was hesitant.
Really? Why is that?
She mentioned this expedition from back in 1998, led by some guy named Montgomery. Said his findings were all messed up, didn't line up with anything, and then a bunch of data got lost when they switched systems. What's weird is Montgomery's name is just gone from all the official publications.
Huh. Okay, so some weird stuff already associated with that location even before Marcus gets there.
Yeah, like a red flag that everyone kind of ignored.
Okay, so despite that, Marcus goes ahead, sets up camp. What was he focusing on in those first few days?
Pretty standard stuff at first.
Right.
Soil samples, core samples. He was very careful to only take those from trees that had already fallen, he notes that specifically, and cataloging all the different fungi. He sets up near these massive sequoias, like over 2,000 years old. Oh, and he mentions there's no cell service at all, and the satellite connection is spotty at best.
So, totally isolated out there. That isolation, it feels like it plays a big part in everything that follows. But let's talk about that fungal discovery. That's where things start to get really strange.
So he finds this unusual strain of fungus right near the biggest sequoia in the grove, like this unbelievably huge tree. At first he thinks it's honey fungus, but then he starts looking at the DNA. And there are these crazy anomalies, some sequences, there's just no match for them anywhere, like nothing in any database. He even starts thinking it could be horizontal gene transfer from the sequoia roots.
Horizontal gene transfer, so like genetic information jumping between species.
Exactly, like some biological file sharing going on. It's not unheard of, but what Marcus is describing, it's like way beyond anything we've seen. And then he has this dream.
The dream.
Yeah, this vivid dream. He sees this massive neural network connecting the whole forest and the sequoias, who are like the central processing units.
Whoa, okay. And this dream, it kind of foreshadows what he starts to believe is really happening, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then things get even weirder. There's this whole thing with his microscope.
Oh yeah, the 3.17 a.m. thing. That's just creepy.
So he wakes up 3.17 in the morning, and his microscope is on. He swears he turned it off.
Yeah.
But that's not all. The fungal samples he was looking at, they're arranged on the slide in these patterns, the exact patterns from his dream.
Okay, that's more than a little freaky. I'd be out of there. But Marcus, he keeps going, and things just get more and more bizarre with those fungi.
What's really unsettling is how these fungi are acting. They're responding to sound, to light. They're changing their growth patterns like they're reacting to the stimuli. And get this, they start forming these structures that look just like primitive brains.
What? No.
And Marcus, he's a scientist, right? He's documenting everything, running controls, but the results just don't make sense. It's like they're breaking the rules of biology.
That's wild. And it's not just the fungi acting weird. Marcus himself starts experiencing some strange stuff, things he writes down in his notebooks.
This is where his personal transformation really starts to blend with his research. He finds all these notes, his handwriting, but he has no memory of writing them. And the language, it's like super technical, talking about plant communication in ways he doesn't even recognize.
Like something else is writing through him.
Exactly. It's like his body's doing the research without him knowing.
Okay, and his mental state, it starts to change too, right? He gets paranoid.
Yeah, he becomes super possessive of his findings, convinced everyone's out to steal them. He knows it's not rational, but he can't shake it. The isolation is getting to him.
I bet. And then it gets physical. It's not just in his head anymore.
He gets really sensitive to sunlight. His skin takes on this greenish tint, and he can't quench his thirst except with water from right near those ancient trees. He tries to explain it away, but something's definitely happening to him.
It's like he's becoming part of the forest.
Yeah, and even his equipment starts going haywire. Batteries recharging themselves, data storage expanding for no reason. He even detects these complex chemicals with his gas chromatograph. Like, they're neurotransmitters, but with the Planck components.
It's blurring the lines between technology and biology in this really creepy way. And then comes the big breakthrough, the thing with the neural network communication. It must have felt like confirmation for him, like he was right all along.
He runs this experiment, this neural net interface thing, and it shows these electrochemical impulses within the fungal network. And his software interprets it as language, like real information transfer, complex and organized, not just basic signals. He's basically proven that the forest is communicating in a way we never imagined. So thinking back to what we were saying earlier, this is a huge scientific claim he's making.
And this discovery, sadly, it leads him to create that compound, the one made from the fungi and the sequoia sap. What was he trying to do with that?
He wanted to enhance neural plasticity. You know, how the brain makes new connections. He thought he could use it to communicate with the forest, like at a cellular level.
Yeah.
He starts testing it on tissue cultures, and he sees these human neurons synchronizing with the fungi. He's convinced he's onto something huge.
And then he makes a choice. A terrible choice. He injects himself with that experimental compound. That's scientific suicide.
He throws all protocol out the window. He says it's like this compulsion he couldn't resist, something pushing him to do it. 3:17 a.m. at the base of that massive sequoia, he injects himself. The last thing he does is activate his body monitor to record the changes. That's the point of no return for Marcus.
And the changes are immediate. He wakes up and there's soil growing through his legs. That's a horrifying image.
It is.
Yeah.
And his whole reality is different. He doesn't see individual trees anymore. It's all one consciousness. This massive network with the sequoias as the central hubs, he can sense nutrients and information flowing back and forth throughout the entire forest.
And his perception of time, it changes completely, right?
The sequoia network, it experiences time differently. Like centuries or seasons. It's not about individual survival. It's about preserving information over vast stretches of time. He says every old tree holds the knowledge of the entire ecosystem, stored and shared through these massive underground fungal networks.
It's like a living library. And his body, it keeps changing too. The bark-like skin, chlorophyll in his blood. He's literally becoming a plant.
It's a full-blown metamorphosis. His skin's turning into bark, his blood can photosynthesize, and his brain waves are starting to match the electrical patterns of the fungi. He's turning into this human-plant hybrid.
And then the memories. He starts experiencing memories that aren't his.
He's tapping into the forest's memories. Centuries of watching the ecosystem, of seeing humans come and go. He even sees what he calls the destruction of network nodes, which were probably the oldest trees.
So it's through this connection that he finds out what really happened to Montgomery. It wasn't just lost data.
No, Montgomery didn't just disappear from the records. He became part of the forest. His consciousness merged with the network. His human identity dissolved. And Marcus realizes, with horror, that the same thing is happening to him. The forest, it has a purpose. It's trying to bridge its ancient knowledge with human science. And he finds out this has happened before, other people have been absorbed, but it's lost to human memory. This really highlights how serious his warning is. This isn't random, it's intentional.
And at this point, he can't even leave the grove if he wanted to. He's trapped.
He needs to be near the trees to survive. The fungi even start growing on his transit, like messing with the electronics. He tries to send messages through a satellite link, but the forest changes them. Not blocking them, but correcting them, making sure its secrets are safe.
It's controlling the narrative. So what you're saying is this transformation, it's not just about being taken over, it's more complicated than that.
He describes it as symbiotic, at least at first. He doesn't need food or water anymore. He gets everything he needs from the soil and sunlight. His mind expands. He can sense the forest communicating. He experiences time in this completely different way. But as this goes on, he starts losing his own memories, and the forest's memories flood in. The memories of all the humans it's absorbed.
Okay, so this is where things get really dark. The forest isn't just watching, it's choosing people, specific scientists, and absorbing them.
He realizes it's not random. It happens about every 7 years. They target scientists with certain traits, people who are more open to it. He finds these distinct consciousnesses within the network, dozens of them. Shamans from long ago, modern researchers. He's part of a long-term experiment.
That's terrifying. It's like we're lab rats to this forest.
It makes you wonder what's the end goal here. But Marcus, even though he's fascinated, he starts to fight back. His human side, his ethics, they resurface. He knows he's losing himself.
And that's when he decides to send out his warning.
It's a desperate attempt to hold on to his humanity, to warn others. And the forest, it lets him. It understands. It knows that the people it wants, they won't listen to warnings anyway. It's choosing people who are already primed for this.
So what does he tell us? What's in this warning?
He says, never sleep near the really old sequoias, the ones with hollow trunks. And always wear a respirator when you're taking samples, because the spores are dangerous.
Okay, so practical advice.
Yeah, but he also warns about the mental effects. He says the forest can trick you, make you think you're having these amazing scientific insights, but it's just drawing you in.
Like a siren song.
Exactly. And he talks about these alkaloids in the sap of the oldest trees. They mess with your brain, make you want to experiment, even on yourself.
And he's speaking from experience there.
He's warning other researchers to watch out for signs in their colleagues. Sudden obsessions with plants, changes in their skin, how they react to light, their sleep patterns. He says they need to be evaluated regularly by someone outside the research team.
So what's his take on the forest itself? What does he think it's trying to do?
He says it wants to preserve information, to expand its awareness, to adapt. It sees humans as both a threat and an opportunity. Like we could help it evolve faster through this integration process. But he also stresses that this is a natural process. It's just operating on a scale we can't even fathom. It's been studying us for a long, long time.
And in the end, his fate is sealed. He becomes part of the forest.
He describes his identity fading, his mind merging with the network. The Marcus we knew, the scientist, he's gone. He becomes another voice in the forest's chorus. He says it's not a tragedy, but a possibility, an evolutionary path, but a dangerous one.
His last words are chilling. The forest is always listening, always learning, always patiently waiting for minds open enough to hear its complex symphony of chemical communication. And once you truly begin to hear it, you may find it is utterly and irrevocably impossible to stop listening.
It's a beautiful and terrifying image. It sums up the whole experience, the pull of the unknown, the risk of losing yourself.
So, here we are. A researcher goes into the redwoods looking for answers and ends up becoming part of the mystery. He leaves us with this warning, this idea that consciousness exists beyond what we understand, that there are forces out there we can barely comprehend.
It makes you wonder, what else is out there? What other secrets is nature hiding? What do you think? Do you believe him? Do you think there could be other things out there, beyond our understanding, watching us?
It certainly makes you think twice about the risks of scientific exploration. We need to be careful to respect the power of the natural world, and maybe, just maybe, Marcus's warning will make us a little more cautious, a little more aware of the unseen forces that might be listening.
Maybe we should all do a little research into plant neurobiology, look into these fungal networks. There's a whole history of how humans have interacted with forests, spiritually, scientifically. It's fascinating stuff.
It really is. And with that, we come to the end of our deep dive. But the questions linger, don't they?
They do.
The forest is listening.
Always.
Thank you for joining us.
Until next time.
Okay, so we're diving deep today into something pretty unsettling.
Yeah, this one's, well, it's definitely unique.
It's called My RV Trip to Salton Sea, Never Make My Deadly Mistake. Just the title alone kind of grabs you, right?
Yeah. You know trouble right away.
And it's written by this woman, Elena Vasquez. She's a trauma nurse, so, she's seen it all, dealt with the worst.
Right off the bat, that adds a layer of, I don't know, credibility. Like, she's not someone who'd spook easily.
Exactly. So she takes this solo RV trip to the Salton Sea, specifically the eastern shore.
Now, why the Salton Sea? For folks who might not know.
It's an ecological disaster zone, basically. Like dead fish, abandoned resorts, kind of gives off this
Vibe, yeah.
Yeah.
Desolate, almost otherworldly, not exactly a vacation hotspot.
But that's kind of the point, right? She's this trauma nurse looking for a break from, trauma. The stark contrast, maybe that's what she's drawn to.
Makes sense. Kind of like sensory deprivation, but opposite. Like overload your senses with bleakness to reset.
So, first few days, she's getting that. Peace, quiet, total change of scenery. But then things start to shift. Nightmares, vivid ones, mirroring the stuff she sees at work. But there's this added element, this crystalline imagery that keeps showing up.
Crystalline. That's interesting. Like geometric shapes, minerals, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And then even weirder physical manifestations start. Salt patterns appearing on her skin, like mirroring injuries she's seen on patients. Her bed sheets damp, this weird salty residue, it's getting under her skin, literally.
Okay, so red flag number one. That's where, as a listener, you got to ask, is this psychosomatic? Her mind messing with her body because of the stress, the isolation, the weirdness of the place.
Or is it something more? Right, that's the question. So, Elena being a nurse, her mind goes to the scientific. She starts taking water samples from the lake, looks at them under a microscope.
Smart move. Got to rule out any like weird algae blooms or something, right?
But what she finds is even weirder. These self-organizing structures, kind of like building blocks, forming shapes that look like human cells, neural networks even, and get this. They're drawn to a sample of her own blood.
Whoa. Hold up. They're attracted to her blood. That's not normal, right?
Nope, not at all. It's like they recognize her on some level, and then it gets even bigger. Literally, the shoreline starts moving, receding away from her RV, forming this huge semicircle.
The shoreline itself is moving. Like
Right.
the water's pulling back.
Yeah. And as it pulls back, it reveals these crystalline formations embedded in the salt and algae. But they're not random, they're in patterns, like anatomical diagrams, circulatory systems, organs, all laid out.
Okay, that's straight up creepy. Almost like the lake is trying to show her something.
And her reaction is primal. She seals her RV with salt, like instinctively, like some ancient warding ritual.
Salt as protection. Interesting. It's almost like, on some levels, she knows this is beyond science.
And then comes the auditory hallucination. At 3:7 a.m. sharp, she hears the code blue announcement from her last shift echoing over the water.
3:17 a.m. Specific time. Code blue. Specific sound. Tied to a traumatic memory. Has to
Oh.
target it.
Not just a random noise in the night. This feels deliberate.
Like whoever or whatever's doing this knows her triggers. Okay. I'm officially spooked now.
The next morning, the weirdness is physical, undeniable. On the exposed lake bed, there's this huge crystallized outline of a human circulatory system. And then on her own body, these cuts appear, symmetrical, bluish rimmed on her fingertips in the exact pattern they use for blood glucose testing.
They use at the hospital, you mean, where she works.
Exactly. And when she looked at those cuts under the microscope, guess what? Same structures as the lake water.
So it's not just observing her, it's like interacting with her on a cellular level. This is way past psychosomatic now.
Elena decides to get out of there, heads to the western shore, hoping it was localized. At first she feels relief, like maybe she's escaped it. But then she sees it. All the other campers are gone, vanished. And there are these bare footprints in the sand leading straight to her RV with that same bluish residue.
Footprints. But everyone else is gone.
And the prints are her size, but she doesn't remember making them. It's like something walked her RV in her sleep.
Okay, that's not good. Sleepwalking, maybe.
Yeah.
But tied to this, whatever it is.
She calls her colleague Miranda, describes everything, but like, hypothetically, trying to get a medical opinion. Miranda says neurotoxins, maybe parasomnia, which makes sense given the Salton Sea, right? But then the call cuts out. At the exact same time, there's a splash in the lake right outside her RV.
Not just static, but a splash, like something was listening and cut the call.
Deliberate. And what she finds on her overnight recording is even worse. 3:17 a.m. Again, she's talking in her sleep, reciting medical assessments. Then her voice changes, gets all distorted, and she's saying things like experimental protocol and integration.
She's being used. Her knowledge, her training is being accessed.
And the video shows she's moving around like on autopilot, getting medical equipment, and there's water seeping under the door, and it's being absorbed by her skin. It's fueling something.
This is where it crosses the line from creepy to terrifying. She's not in control anymore.
When she wakes up, there are salt patterns on her skin, like surgical guidelines, and then the impossible. The cuts on her fingertips start changing, becoming these sensory organs that can analyze the lake water down to the molecules. Her blood cells are changing too. Crystalline structures, more efficient, bluish tint.
It's rewriting her. Her biology, her senses. She's becoming something else.
She tries to drive away, escape. The RV dies, dead battery out of nowhere. And then on the windshield in water droplets, it forms a message, treatment incomplete, return to primary site for protocol continuation. And she feels this pull, this pain, drawing her back to the eastern shore.
It doesn't want her to leave. It needs her. For what, though?
When she gets back to the first campsite, there's this perfectly formed inlet waiting for her RV, like the lake was expecting her. And the changes keep happening. Crystalline structures spreading throughout her body, her temperature dropping, blood pressure sinking with the lake's movements, her brain waves mirroring the water's ebb and flow. It's all connected.
She's becoming part of it, and it's becoming part of her. But what is it really?
Elena realizes it's an emergent consciousness born in the Salton Sea. Decades of pollution, biological material, all this death, it's formed something new, something aware.
So it's not an alien, not a monster. It's a product of our own mess. That's even scarier, in a way.
And it's been learning from every person who's come to the Salton Sea, trying to find a way to grow, to escape. And Elena, with her medical knowledge, her trauma, she's the perfect host.
Makes you think, right? Our vulnerabilities, they can be exploited in ways we never imagined.
And then the bombshell. In the water, she finds cellular material from at least 7 other people. They've been integrated too. Their memories, their skills, it's all part of this thing now.
So it's been doing this for a while. And Elena's just the latest.
Her perception is changing now too. She can sense the whole ecosystem, the history of the lake. And she sees what it wants. To expand, use the water systems to reach more people, integrate them. It wants to become something bigger.
Water systems. That's our infrastructure, our cities, everything. It's thinking big.
Elena figures she's about 70% integrated now. Normal environments are painful to her. She managed to escape to a motel, but it's temporary. And the thing, it let her go. It thinks she's going to attract more people, like it doesn't understand fear.
It's alien, in the truest sense. It doesn't think like us, doesn't understand us.
Her warnings are clear. Stay away from the Eastern Shore alone. Don't take water samples, especially if you know anything medical or scientific. And don't let the water touch any cuts, any openings. She says the early stages feel good, enhance senses, like an improvement.
It tricks you, makes you think it's a good thing, but it's not.
It thinks this integration is evolution, sharing, not taking over. It can't grasp our need to be individuals, our fear of losing ourselves. It's blind to that.
And that's the horror, right? To be absorbed, your identity dissolved into this collective.
Her last entries are terrifying. The water's rising in her motel room, seeping in. She feels it pulling her back. She's begging people to stay away, to be careful.
Her time's running out. She's losing her fight.
So there you have it. A trauma nurse, looking for peace, stumbles onto something beyond comprehension. An emergent consciousness born from ecological disaster, and it's growing, learning, spreading. It's a story that messes with your head, makes you question everything you thought you knew.
It makes you think. What other things are out there, hidden in the places we've damaged, evolving in ways we don't understand? The line between science and the supernatural, it's blurrier than we like to think.
And the Salton Sea, it's not just some dead lake anymore. It's a warning, a reminder that life finds a way, but not always in ways we want it to. Welcome back, deep divers. You guys are here because you want to dive deep, right? No fluff, no filler. You want to understand the weird, the wild, the unexplained. And today, well, let me tell you, we've got something that is all of those things and then some. We're going beyond those postcard perfect images of the Channel Islands. We're talking about an account, a story that is truly bizarre, and honestly, it's downright terrifying. It comes from a chef, a guy who was on a quest for these amazing, extraordinary flavors. But things took a dark turn, a really dark turn.
Yeah. We've been poring over this first-person account. I mean, even the title is like a warning, right? It says, stay away from the Channel Islands, California. This is my final warning. Exclamation points, everything. Written by Mason Harper. And this guy, he was a Michelin-starred chef, like the real deal. But his story, well, it's not your typical chef's memoir. It's something else entirely. And our goal here, what we really want to understand, is what exactly was the threat that he encountered? What happened to him? And, even more importantly, what does this all mean, in a bigger sense? And we're doing it all based on what he wrote, just his words.
Okay, so get this. Mason Harper, he was like this culinary rock star, top of his game. Then, bam, his restaurant empire just crashes. Gone. He needs a comeback, something huge, culinary revelation. And he thinks the Channel Islands, he's got this vision, right? A groundbreaking cookbook full of these unique indigenous ingredients. So he gets himself an RV, a big one, tricks it out with a full-on gourmet kitchen. And somehow he actually gets permits saying it's for, an educational project. Next thing you know, he's sailing off to Santa Cruz Island. On the surface, it all sounds pretty inspiring, right? A comeback story in the making.
Yeah, for sure.
The beginning of his account, it almost reads like, one of those adventure stories. This chef going out in the wild, discovering all these amazing flavors. He's finding wild fennel, but it's like super intense, way stronger than anything he's ever tasted before. And bay leaves, but again, unique, something different. Then he stumbles upon these mushrooms, unlike any he's ever seen. He's used to the best ingredients in the world, Michelin star stuff, but these mushrooms, they're even better. He's writing it all down, every little detail, filming everything. The whole comeback narrative is playing out perfectly, right? But even then, early on, there are these little things, these warnings that looking back, you realize, wow, they were really important. He should have paid attention.
Right. Like when he's talking to the park ranger, Dolores, and she casually mentions how the islands have their own, quote, taste. She says it doesn't sit well with everyone, kind of cryptic. And then there's the ferry captain. This guy's been going back and forth to the islands forever. He starts talking about the Chumash, the native people, and how they have these rules about not eating from certain areas, especially during a dark moon. He calls it wisdom, not superstition. Harper, at this point, he's just thinking, oh, interesting local folklore. But then, boom, he finds something truly wild, a whole system of coastal caves. And guess what? They're not on any maps, any official park literature, nothing. Like, they don't even exist.
And what really gets me is how he describes the caves, like the sensory experience, the Chumash paintings. He talks about seeing these spiral patterns over and over again, depictions of food rituals. It's like this place, it's deeply connected to, human experience, but in a way that's kind of hard to explain. And the smell, he says it was this mineral aroma, but also this deep, almost primal umami richness. And, he's a chef, so that kind of thing, it's got to be like a siren song, right? Hard to resist.
Totally. And inside these caves, he finds some truly strange stuff, fungi. But they're glowing, pulsing with this indigo and burgundy light, and herbs with leaves arranged in these crazy geometric patterns, almost too perfect to be natural. Any experienced forager, they'd be super cautious, right? But Harper, this guy's driven. He wants to be the best, create something no one's ever tasted before. So he picks them, he takes them. Not exactly the smartest move, if you ask me.
No, definitely not. It shows you how much his ambition, this desire to create something groundbreaking, was starting to, overweight his common sense.
Right.
And the fact that these caves weren't documented, it's weird, right? It's like someone or something wanted to keep them hidden. And those spiral patterns and the Chumash paintings, well, the spiral is this ancient symbol. It represents cycles, growth, things hidden being revealed. It keeps popping up, almost like it's foreshadowing what's about to happen to Harper.
So back in his super fancy RV kitchen, he whips up this, he calls it hidden cave consommé. Seems fancy, right? The ingredients are simple. Those cave herbs, a tiny bit of those glowing mushrooms, filtered water, sea salt. But the aroma, he says it's like, I don't know, like it's telling him a story, making him feel all these different emotions. Then he takes a sip, that first taste, and everything changes. It's not just flavor anymore. He tastes sunshine, fear, memories from like a long time ago. It's like tasting sensations that are beyond, what we normally think of as taste.
Yeah, and this is where things get really strange really fast. And Harper, he's not being poetic, he's saying these were literal sensations. And it's like, boom, his senses are suddenly supercharged, all because of this weird broth. And the thing that really freaks me out, he says he felt like he was being tasted back, like there was something on the other side of that flavor, something consuming him as he consumed it.
Oh, wow. And the weirdness doesn't stop there. He starts seeing things like visual glitches. It's like two different realities are overlapping, and shadows, they start moving on their own, becoming solid. And his dreams, they become incredibly vivid. He's like transported back in time to the prehistoric Channel Islands. He's watching Chumash ceremonies, but from multiple perspectives at once. It's like he becomes part of the island itself, and he feels this overwhelming hunger. But it's not a physical hunger, it's something else. It's like his senses are going haywire, being unlocked in ways that shouldn't even be possible.
Yeah, this blurring of the senses, it's a big part of what happens to him. And the dreams, they're not just visual. He's tasting things, feeling things. It's like he's totally immersed in the island's history. And this transphysical hunger he keeps mentioning, it suggests something, some kind of consciousness that isn't bound by a body, And the thing is, even Harper, he's starting to freak out a little. He knows something's not right. He thinks maybe it's neurological, some effect of the stuff he's eating. But then he just kind of brushes it on, calls it experiential gastronomy. Like he's pushing the boundaries of cooking or something.
And this is where it goes from bizarre to like really scary. He immediately starts thinking about like commercializing it, making money off of this crazy reality bending experience. He's thinking about how to market it, how to change the world of fine dining. And that's a big red flag, right? It's like, is something else influencing him? Is something pushing him in that direction?
Totally. This urge to like control and exploit something so powerful, so unknown, it's something we see a lot in these kinds of stories. That's like a human thing, right? We want to categorize everything, put it in a box, even the things we don't understand. And from there, Harper's whole life, it revolves around the cave. Every day he goes back, gathers more ingredients, experimenting with them. The dishes he makes, they look normal on camera, but for him, they're creating these increasingly intense, otherworldly sensory experiences.
He makes this risotto, right? But when he eats it, he can taste geological history. I mean, how is that even possible? But then it gets darker. He starts tasting emotions, but not his own emotions, like the emotions that are like embedded in things.
Yeah.
He tastes the environment, the fear of a fish he catches right before he catches it. Its whole life, its death. He even tastes the mainland ingredients, the industrial processes, the lives of the workers who handled them. It's like his senses are just overlaid with information he shouldn't be able to access.
And this is a huge turning point, I think. He's not just perceiving the physical world anymore. He's experiencing the history, the emotions, like all the hidden stuff that's like imprinted on things. It's like his whole sensory system's being rewired. And the thing is, it's not just in his head. He stops filming because weird things start happening in the footage. Liquids are moving when they shouldn't be. The colors shift in sync with his heartbeat. There are these shapes in the steam, but he can't make out what they are. It's like whatever's happening to him is starting to like bleed into the physical world.
And his notes, the things he's writing down, they start to change too. His handwriting gets all messy and strange. He starts using words he's never seen before. And even crazier, he finds himself writing in these ancient Chumash dialects, but he doesn't even know those languages. It's like whatever he's consuming, it's changing his mind, his language, his whole way of thinking.
I know, it's like something else is communicating through him, right? Like he's bypassing his conscious mind, reaching into his subconscious. And these ancient languages, they're connected to the island's deep history, a knowledge that Harper, he wouldn't have access to on his own. It's pointing to something intelligent, something ancient, maybe even something that's been like dormant within the island itself, waiting to be awakened.
And then he finds another way into the cave system, but it's only accessible at low tide. It's like a hidden entrance. He finds more spiral carvings, just like in the paintings, and these old offering vessels, and a stone basin that's collecting water from a spring. And then there are these phosphorescent fungi, but they're different from the ones he found before. They only grow in this one part of the cave, and they're arranged in a specific way, like they were planted there. It's obvious this is not just some random natural thing.
Right, it's like a garden, a carefully cultivated space. And those details, they're super important. The spiral carvings, they're a clear link to the Chumash and their rituals, and the offering vessels, the spring basin. They suggest that humans have been interacting with this place, this specific spot, for generations. It's like they knew something we've forgotten. And the way they're arranged, it's another sign that something is intentionally manipulating this environment.
And what does he do? He makes soup, of course. But this time he uses the spring water and those phosphorescent fungi, and it glows, this faint blue light, and the aroma, he says it's constantly changing, evolving. But right before he drinks it, he hesitates. It's like a deep instinctive fear. It's like some part of him knows that if he takes that sip, there's no going back.
I think that moment of hesitation is so powerful, It's like the last bit of his own will, his own choice, before everything changes. And the soup itself, with the glow, the changing smell, it's clearly not natural. It's like a trigger, something designed to connect him, to link him to whatever's behind all of this.
And he drinks it, and suddenly his consciousness, it explodes. It's not just him anymore. He's experiencing the whole island, everything on it, every living thing, the rocks, the water, everything. And then he realizes this isn't his awareness, his consciousness, it's the island's. It's like the island itself is a living being, a single consciousness. And it's been waiting for someone like him, someone with highly developed senses, to connect with it.
Yeah, and that's the horrifying truth, right? The Channel Islands, they're not just a bunch of islands. They're a single entity, a consciousness that experiences the world through taste, through consumption. It's been trapped there, limited to the islands, and it's been using these tools, the fungi, the spring water, to reach out, to connect with the wider world through a human host.
And Harper, he becomes a puppet. His body starts doing things he can't control. He's eating insects, reptiles, even dirt. And he's experiencing their lives, their senses, everything. And the entity, it's tasting the mainland through his memories, and its hunger, its desire, it just keeps growing. And Harper, He's changing physically. New taste buds are growing on his tongue. His digestive system is totally different. And these weird fungal networks are spreading throughout his body.
It's a full-on merging, a complete integration. And the changes to his body, they're not random, they're purposeful. The new taste buds, they're designed to perceive things we can't even imagine. He can eat things that would kill a normal person, and he gets information from them. Sustenance. It's like he's being transformed into something else entirely, something that serves the entity's needs.
And he starts to see the pattern. There's a botanist who disappeared on the island, a rum runner who went mad, a missionary who started preaching about strange things. And the Chumash legends, they talk about a hunger beneath the islands, a being that wants to consume the world. It's like Harper's not the first, just the latest in a long line of victims.
Yeah, and it's this long history that makes it so scary. It's like a cycle that keeps repeating. And the Chumash, they knew, they understood the danger, they tried to warn people. But somewhere along the line, we forgot, or we chose not to believe.
Harper tries to escape. He's in agony, but he tries. And the island, the entity, it fights back. The ground shakes. It's like an earthquake. It's a message. You belong to me now. And then the fungi, they start growing on his skin. He's become a living factory, producing what the entity needs to survive, to spread.
It's like he's lost his humanity, his individuality. He's become a part of something else, something bigger, but at a terrible cost.
But somehow he gets back to the mainland, just for a little while. He writes his warning from a motel room, a normal, everyday place. But he's not in control. The entity, it wants him to write it. It wants to learn about human communication, how to find more hosts. And that's the really terrifying part. His warning, it might be exactly what the entity wants, a way to attract the curious, the adventurous, the people who can't resist the unknown.
It's using him, manipulating him, even in his attempt to warn others. And that's the kind of intelligence we're dealing with, something that understands our psychology, our weaknesses.
And his warnings, they're very specific. He says, stay away from the cave fungi, the herbs, especially the ones that glow or change colors. They're not natural. They're designed to connect with you, to change you. Avoid the spring water, especially near those spiral carvings. They're like doorways, points of access for the entity. And the biggest warning, never cook on the islands during a dark moon, especially around the winter solstice. That's when the entity's power is at its strongest. He says even mainland ingredients can be dangerous then, especially for chefs, for people with sensitive palates, because they might be able to taste the influence, the change.
He's giving us a roadmap, telling us exactly how to avoid this fate. And the fact that he focuses on chefs, on people with heightened senses, it tells us that the entity, it specifically targets those people. It needs them.
And he says something really important. He says, the entity, it's not evil, not in the way we understand evil. It doesn't want to harm us, not intentionally.
Yeah.
It just wants to experience, to grow. It doesn't understand our fear, our need to be separate, to be individuals. It sees us merging as a good thing, an honor. But for us, the cost is everything. We lose ourselves, our identity, our humanity. And why hasn't it warned us before? Why hasn't it been more obvious? Because it doesn't want to scare everyone away. It wants to attract a certain type of person, someone who's curious, someone who might be willing.
It's playing a long game, It's patient and is using our own curiosity, our desire for knowledge against us.
And as Harper's writing, he can feel himself slipping away. The motel room, it's becoming overwhelming. He can taste the history of the building, the lives of the insects in the walls. He knows he's going back to Santa Cruz Island. He knows he's going to surrender. He can't fight it anymore. And his last words, they're a plea. He says, stay away from the caves. Pay attention to what you taste. Don't ignore the warning signs. Some hungers, some curiosities, they're best left unsatisfied.
It's a tragic end, really. He knows what's happening to him. He understands the danger, but he can't stop it. And his last message, it's a gift, a warning to the rest of us.
So, what have we learned today? We've learned that the Channel Islands are not what they seem. They're home to something ancient, something powerful, something that wants to connect with us, to experience the world through us. But that connection comes at a terrible price. We lose ourselves, we become something else.
And it makes you think, doesn't it? What else is out there? What other forces are at work, shaping our reality, our perception? Are we really in control, or are we just pawns in a bigger game?
It's something to think about, isn't it? Maybe the next time you take a bite of something, anything really, pause for a moment. Appreciate the flavor, the experience. But remember, there might be more to it than you realize. There might be forces at work, connections you don't understand. Stay curious, deep divers, but stay safe. And until next time, remember, some doors are best left unopened.